Welcome. Okay, so first of all, why are we here? I always want to start with why are we here? And have a diversity of reasons, I'm sure. At that level, at the level of diversity, there will always be a diversity of reasons. And then if we look at what's the actual reason, then we can have some clarity. So, of course, if I just give you the answer, that is of little use. But if you look for yourself and discover it for yourself, then it's really valuable. So take a look for yourself and see. So all of the reasons why the mind can come up with why you might be here. Because it's entertaining, because I'm looking for something, because I'm wanting to get away from something, I want to get rid of something, I want to change something. I don't know. There's no reason. All of these reasons and many, many more. And then look at what's simpler than that. Like, so simple, it's just like a child. If you try to talk to a child about why have you done this? Why did you do this thing? A young child. And any reason is a good enough reason because it's not at that level. That's not really what's motivating the child. They're too innocent for that. And by innocent, I don't mean that all their motives are good motives. I just mean innocent in the sense that they don't know. They haven't reasoned it out. It's not some logical sequence. It's very simple and pure in a way, and just in the sense of just you can look for yourself and see what is it really, and it's really just because you feel it. There's a desire. I say a desire, but it's really just desire. And so on the one end of it, your mind tries to make sense of it and comes up with all of this diversity of reasons. And you look at throughout your life and you've had all kinds of different reasons. The reasons come and go. They change depending on the time, the circumstances, what's in vogue, where you live, what's popular, unpopular, and what's been presented to you as possible options. You see that those options are fairly limited. But then if you look at it from the other side of desire, just look at it and it's just in its purity and its wholeness, just desire, longing. And then look and see what is that. It's a longing for what? So most desires, we look out and we try to match them up with some object of desire, hence the diversity. But if you look the other direction, you see what this longing, this innocent longing, this innocent desire, what is it that it's really, what is its real aim? And you see, of course, its real aim is its own resolution. Which is its own source. So you just see its own source, which is unmanifest, pure desire, pure longing, pure devotion. And we can call that by any name we want. You can call that peace, you can call that oneness, you can call that God, you can call that Mother Mary, you can call it whatever you want. So that's why we're here. And so we'll go through a sequence of inquiry to get clearer on that. So, of course, many people here, so there are many different states. So we'll assume the kind of lowest common denominator, and we'll make that our starting point. So there's some level of activity, there's some level of agitation, great or small, some level of doubt, some level of confusion, again, great or small. And it just has to do with this tendency of looking outward, seeking outward in this world of diversity for what it is that we truly are looking for. And so we'll start just by relaxing that tendency. So let's close the eyes. And we'll start with the body. So if you have a sense of your body, if you don't have a sense of the body, then it's completely unnecessary and you can just rest. But if you have a sense of the body and maybe you notice some agitation or discomfort associated with that sense of the body, then just begin to relax that. And if there are any objections like, I don't know how, then just remember that all things worth learning can seem impossible at first because we don't have the first clue. So it seems impossible, but it's not impossible. It's entirely possible. So whatever your starting point, even if the objection arises, I don't know how, it's impossible, I can't do it, I'm too agitated, it's too difficult, I don't know where to begin, any of these kinds of objections, just let those come and go. And just notice what I call the low-hanging fruit. So you can just gently notice whatever calls your attention in terms of the bodily sensations, and just notice what you can let go of. So it's not about achieving perfection. It's not about arriving at some state where you feel like you're floating on cloud nine. It's just to be present to your experience and just to release whatever you can. And I strongly encourage you not to overreach with this, because certainly through act of will, it is possible depending on how much willpower you have. But particularly for the young who have a great force of willpower, it's possible to strain somewhat paradoxically and cause a release, force a release. But it's like the image of Moses parting the Red Sea comes to mind. You know, it's done through the use of force, but it will come to a rather catastrophic end. So let's not use excessive force or willpower. Rather, just relax. Just find whatever you can let go of, and just let go of that, and don't try to overreach. Even if it's possible, don't do it by force. Just relax, as if you are, it's almost like falling asleep, except that you're remaining awake. So if you want to fall asleep, of course, you know that you have to let go. And you have this experience every night when you fall asleep. So you know that you're able to do it. And so all we're doing here is we're discovering how to do that while remaining awake. So we start with the more gross level. So you scan for the big stuff. And because it can be helpful, I'll just guide you through a brief journey. So I'll just mention the names of parts of the body, and you just follow along with your attention lightly. And when I name the part of the body, just place your attention there and notice what you can soften and release. And don't try to be perfect at it. And when I name the next part, just move your attention there and continue in this way. So don't remain striving for perfection in any one part of the body. Just follow along lightly. Top of the head, forehead, left nostril, right nostril, inside the left ear, outside the left ear, inside the right ear, outside the right ear, the tongue, the inside of the throat, the back of the head where it meets the neck, the left shoulder, the left elbow, the left wrist, the left palm and fingers, the right shoulder, the right elbow, the right wrist, the right palm and fingers, the left shoulder blade, the right shoulder blade, the space between the shoulder blades. The left side of the chest, the right side of the chest, the abdomen, including the belly button, the pelvic floor, the left buttock, the left knee, the left ankle, the left foot and toes, the right buttock, the right knee, the right ankle, the right foot and toes. So now we've relaxed the gross level. to whatever degree is possible. So again, it's not about it being perfect. It's just whatever is possible. And that's always good enough. We have to start where we are. We can't start somewhere else. And we have to just trust that by following along, we're discovering something valuable, and that will allow us to continue to discover even more. So we're just taking a journey. Now let's explore at a slightly subtler level. So still physical, but just slightly subtler. So relax the forehead and the eyes and the cheeks and the tongue and the heart and the belly. And let all of that remain soft. And start to just notice the thoughts, and notice that if you allow all of this to remain soft and open, then the thoughts don't really take the same shape. They can't fully form in the usual way. They're still there, but they can't take the same shape. They don't come into focus in the same way. And just continue to be aware of this relationship between this relaxation and the thoughts, so that you can continue to relax even more deeply and release even more, so that the thoughts just become more and more subtle, open. Now, either you will find that this is very enjoyable and fairly easy, in which case just continue because it's very pleasant. Or if you find that you're struggling a bit, then I'll just invite you to notice that you actually have this faculty of discernment, and it's something that's prior to the focus on a thought. So it's not a thought itself, but it's something prior to the focus on a thought. And it's something that you can become more aware of and that you can cultivate just by awareness and then exercising it. So notice that this discernment, also we could say it's a matter of prioritization. It's what you give importance to. It's what you choose to place your attention on. So if you find it still difficult not to focus on the thoughts and tense up and think a lot, just notice that you can become aware of that process of focusing on the thought. So give yourself permission, if that's what continues to happen, for that to just happen. So if the focus on thought still happens, it's fine. Give yourself permission. It's not bad. None of this is about bad or good. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about learning about ourselves. So you can just watch and see how this process occurs. So you can notice, you might be curious, where do thoughts come from? And here, we're not thinking about it, rather just actually observing. Can we notice an arising thought. So prior to a thought being in focus, what is the experience? How do we start to become aware of it? And just notice, and then observe that process by which the thought is brought into focus, and just see how that feels and what the experience is. And then you can notice perhaps this faculty of discernment that I'm talking about, which is the point at which there is where that focus begins, where there's a choice. I can remain with what is not the thought, or I can focus on the thought. So just notice that there is a choice. And notice what it is that tips the scales, so to speak, in favor of focus on the thought. Why give focus to the thought? It's fairly simple when you recognize it. It's just that there's a sense that this thought is more important than what's available if you don't focus on the thought. And why would that be? Well, obviously because, and just look to see how this is true, because the belief is, I'm not safe, and this thought pertains to me and how I can become safe. Or I'm not okay, and this thought pertains to me and how I can become okay. So there's a promise there. So it turns out to be a false promise, but it's a promise. If I focus on the thought, it's going to help me. I'm not okay. Focus on the thought can help me. So just watch and see how time and time again the thoughts disappoint. They don't make good on the promise. And then start to just explore what happens if for just a moment you continue to relax, just continue to allow yourself just to be open without a focus on the thought. What if you just continue to inhabit this space prior to the thought? Just for a moment, see, are you more okay or less okay? So now, possibly, you recognize that in this space prior to the thought, prior to the focus on the thought, there's actually okayness. It hasn't killed you yet. And maybe you start to notice that it's actually pleasant. It's actually quite nice. And perhaps you notice that all of that usual sense, that overly familiar and yet uncomfortable sense of limitation and being bound, sort of chronic unhappiness is gone, vanishes. It's not here. It's just like as if it was a dream that you've woken up from. And that the reality here is spaciousness, openness, freedom. And if you look carefully, you might recognize that here is already fulfillment. Here is already the source of the longing and the desire. All longing and desire. It's already fulfilled. It's already an overflowing of fulfillment. But then you can notice, perhaps it depends, if it's possible that this is so attractive that you just are resting here. There's nothing else that can compare. So if you have that experience, that's wonderful. You can just continue just to enjoy this. But it's also possible that doubts arise. So if doubts arise, then just notice what's happening. So if doubts arise, prior to the doubt arising, there's just this freedom, spaciousness, fulfillment, happiness. And then the doubt arises, and all of a sudden there's this familiar uncomfortableness, this familiar binding. And so the doubt is something like, well, yeah, but I have to think. I have to be able to think to do anything. And if I'm thinking, then I'm seem to be suffering. So how does this help me? It's one possible doubt. But just notice that whatever the doubt is, it's a thought. And that, again, what's happened is that the priority has gone to focusing on that thought, and that the thought creates this whole world of problems, this whole world of me and my past and my future and where I've got to go and how I've got to do it and what I've got to do and how I've got to protect myself and what I've got to achieve, how things work. But if you just allow, which will happen anyway, inevitably at some point, so just allow it to happen now, just allow for that focus to dissolve. So you can see that all thoughts come and go. So they arise and then they dissolve. So this doubt comes, this doubt goes. And notice that as it goes, it returns to its source. It comes from this spaciousness and it returns to this spaciousness. So as you just allow it to dissolve just by relaxing, that's all. You just relax the face, relax the heart, relax the belly. And then just notice that if you're not making the effort, then it just dissolves. And what's here, again, is this overflowing peace. And if another doubt comes, then just watch what happens. So watch carefully, and you can see as the doubt forms, the process by which that occurs, and then you can watch how you maintain it, and then you can watch how you release it, and watch as it dissolves, and see that all the while this spaciousness remains. So problems come and go. Problems are transient, but peace is continuous. Peace is the basis of all reality. And this isn't a theory, it's a direct experience. So just look to see that this is the case. See that when you're not thinking, the peace is abundantly clear. There's nothing else, only peace. And then the thought comes, you focus on the thought, the whole world of problems arises, the whole world of me and my past and my future and my problems and my struggles and what I've got to do and how difficult life is, and all of that arises in an instant. Meanwhile, peace is still here. Peace is what's watching. And then as you relax and that doubt or thought dissolves, then again, there's just peace. So then at some point, the doubt comes or the thought comes that says, well, it can't be this simple. But whatever the thought or doubt is, just look again to see that there's this discernment, and that discernment gets overlooked. We don't see this is happening until it's pointed out, but you can just observe that what's happening is that this incorrect assumption inserts itself that there's something wrong with me, something wrong with my experience, something lacking. And that this thought or this doubt pertains to me and might help me to resolve whatever is the problem, whatever is lacking. So we focus on it, and sure enough, it tells us, here's what's wrong. Here's the justification. What are you going to do about it? You got to do something. You got to think more, figure it out. Which we do until the strain becomes too great, and eventually, sooner or later, we have to let go. But why postpone it? Just let go now. And then you discover that when you let go, it dissolves, and here is only peace. Now, of course, in the normal state of things, there's very little gap between the thoughts. But here we've slowed things down. We've allowed ourselves to become subtle so that we can notice this, so we can see the space, we can observe it, we can rest in that. So you have this glimpse, hopefully, of this, which remains when all else is let go of. And there's an obvious fact about this that is either obvious to you or not. So it's obvious, but we can overlook it nonetheless until somebody points it out. So I will point it out to you. Who is this? And if you don't think about it, but you just notice what's perfectly obvious, then you can, the only answer is it's me. I am this. Just notice, how do you experience this peace or this silence or this stillness or this spaciousness or this freedom? Do you experience it at a distance? Does it belong to somebody else? And it should be obvious. No, it's right here. It's intimate. I'm one with it. I can't get outside of it to objectify it. I can't see it in the usual way that I see things. I can't touch it in the usual way that I touch things. And yet I know that it is real and true and here. I know that it is because I experience it, but I experience it as myself. I am this. So just notice that. And notice that it's absolutely clear as long as you don't think about it. So now, if you have this glimpse, if you recognize this, then still, sooner or later, just out of habit, it's likely that the doubt will arise. And in some sense, rightly so, because the doubt will say, yeah, but it seems that I get lost when I'm going about my life. I can catch a glimpse maybe of this when I'm very still, when somebody guides me to see it, when somebody points it out. But when I go about the rest of my life, I seem to forget. I seem to get lost. So let's see if we have a means to address that. And I will propose that the real objection is just comes down to, I don't feel it. Most of the time, I don't feel it. Most of the time, I feel contracted. Most of the time, I feel afraid. Most of the time, I feel uncomfortable. I forget that there's anything else. So let's see if we can help to build a bridge of sorts. Because clearly you haven't changed. You are the same you now that you always are. You know that you are you. So the real you is who is here now. This same real you is here even when you're thinking, even when you think you have problems, even when you feel upset, even when you feel bad, even when you feel bound, even when you feel angry. It's the same you, just with other stuff layered on top. So this same self is continuous, always true. But other stuff seems to obscure it, like clouds in the sky. So the sky remains unaffected, but the clouds seem to obscure the sky so long as we are overlooking something. So how can we build this bridge? Well, we want to build the bridge so that we more readily recognize our true self. So here we have this glimpse. And what we want to do is build a bridge through these subtle layers of experience so that we have this bridge or this thread that connects us always to, on some level at least, this recognition of ourselves. And I'll propose that we can do this through what we understand as the heart. So just notice here the heart, and it's the heart, not the physical organ, but the heart of yourself, the heart, how you know yourself. So just notice when you are aware of yourself, not as an idea, not as a particular state, but just yourself. Just notice the heart of that, the core of that. And you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to have any kind of certainty about it. It's just an intuition. And just trust that. And then notice this heart of yourself. Notice it's how you recognize it. Notice that you recognize it because of some inherent quality. So we could say luminous or aware. We could also say that it is loving. Not loving in the limited sense that we think of, not possessive, but loving in a way of complete acceptance. And notice that you can start to feel that. So at a subtle level, you can start to feel and perceive this heart of yourself, your essential self, as a kind of vibration. So I'm just using words to point to something. So you could use other words. You could have a sense of yourself as light, or a sense of yourself as a tingling, or a sense of yourself as spaciousness, or a sense of yourself as love, or a sense of yourself as awareness, but alive. And here, really feel that. And it's not about thinking. So if doubts are there, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. What does he really mean? Am I really feeling it, or am I just making it up? All that kind of stuff. You don't need to focus on that. Just trust that you know that you are, and that you can perceive yourself, feel yourself, know yourself. And here we're just starting to explore this possibility of building this bridge just by gently starting to encourage that gentle, subtle manifestation through the heart of yourself. Just notice that. And maybe you even start to have a sense of a kind of happiness, uncaused. It's not you're happy because of anything, but just happiness, just gentle happiness. If you're willing to be bold and daring enough to open to that. And then start to just allow for that to expand and reach out into these still subtle layers of yourself, but not quite as subtle. So it's like expanding from the most subtle outward into the increasingly gross layers of experience and existence. So you start to notice that even your thoughts and feelings are in contact with this heart of yourself. You can feel that same thread, that same vibration, that same aliveness, that same happiness starting to reach into and touch your thoughts and feelings. And your sense of energy. And your physical body, so that you can actually start to perceive that this inmost self, the vibration of this inmost self, is spreading all the way through your physical body, like a blessing to your physical body. As a reminder of your true source, the source of even your physical body. And then you can allow that to even expand beyond your physical body out into your world, to your relationships and your finances and all of your surroundings, your home, your neighborhood, your friends, your family, and including the whole world. And you can start to notice that this vibration of the inmost self is very powerful if you allow it to be, because it expands and opens and frees and liberates all of the false bondage that out of ignorance and habit you had projected into the world, projected into your body, projected into your feelings and thoughts. It liberates all of that if you let it. It just expands, frees, opens, and you can start to perceive all kinds of limitless possibilities. Anything is possible. Anything could be. And of course, we don't want to have a false limitation that this is only available when the eyes are closed. So remaining aware of this, slowly begin to open the eyes and allow for that vibration of the inmost self to also reach into the seen, so that even the seen world is liberated by this inmost self. And you might notice that if you allow yourself to see from this inmost self, then you're seeing with the innocence of like a newborn baby, but not the ignorance. So it's innocence and wisdom simultaneously. And you can notice that that faculty of discernment is there because it's always that option remains. You can go and give attention to and prioritize the doubts, the fears, the anxieties, the worries, the habits, all of the problems, all of the old, all of the false overlays and false projections. Or you can just remain with the clear seeing, the clear perception of the inmost self. So there's either bondage or there's liberation, and they're equally available. And it's just through this simple choice. The simple is, it's true, it's accurate to say it's simple. That doesn't mean that it's always necessarily easy, because it's a process of learning to really trust that. So if out of habit you've perceived yourself to be something limited, something broken, something with problems, then at first maybe it's a little bit more challenging, but it's always simple. Okay, so that's it for today's formal portion. So for those who are here live, we'll stay on for the Q&A. So I'm going to end this recording now. And for those who are here live, remember that the Zoom announcement is, I think, a louder talker than I am. So don't be surprised.